This is Climate Countdown, Climate Crackdown. I'm Amy Goodman. We're inside the Bella Center for a look at what's happening inside here. We're joined now by Andy Revkin. Andrew Revkin is the outgoing environmental reporter for the New York Times. We'll talk about that in a minute. Andrew, what's happening inside here as thousands are outside protesting?
Well, there's an epic fight over words and what they mean. China, the United States, Europe, poorer developing countries are in a tug of war over the meaning of global warming. Each of these blocks essentially defines this problem differently, and that's why you have these huge gulfs to bridge before 2 more days are up. You know, having covered these cycles since before there was the first treaty in 1992, it seems very late in the game to have such significant differences over the language in this agreement.
For people who are not following this, the United States probably #1 in the world for not being as aware of the issue of global warming as others, especially in the global south. Explain exactly where we are with President Obama arriving here along with more than 100 world leaders, what it means for delegations like, well, the whole African bloc to walk out the other day. But now the ministers are here, and then the presidents and prime ministers.
Almost all the tensions that are in play here date back to 1992, when the very first convention on global warming was signed by another president, the first George Bush. That was the last time a U.S. president went to the climate talks, and now it's crunch time. Basically, back then it was all aspirational. You know, we all pledged to avoid dangerous warming, but no one defined dangerous. No one defined any of the key terms. So it was all, and it all by 2000, it all looked like it was failing. Actually, by the mid-90s. So then the Kyoto Protocol was supposed to be the tighter, more firm, legally binding approach. That has faltered. So now it really is crunch time. It's kind of like, you know, you put off your homework, you put off your homework, you put off your homework. And they're still, of course, even after here, they're going to put it off one more time. You
have President Clinton signing the Kyoto Treaty. You have President Bush withdrawing from the treaty. President Obama could actually re-sign the Kyoto Protocol. Is that right?
No. In fact, they've rejected that utterly. The Kyoto Protocol is not going to be something, as Todd Stern said here just yesterday, the chief climate negotiator for the U.S. said it's done.
I understand, but the Kyoto Protocol is not over.
It's not over. The binding elements of it are something that developing countries want to see moved into whatever broader agreement emerges here, so that the good part, the firm, legally binding part of this Kyoto Pact, which never has applied beyond 36 countries, all the developed countries except the United States, they're the only ones who are bound by its restrictions on gases. And the United States delegation here says, look, 97% of the growth in these emissions in the next 30 years is not going to be in the United States or Europe. We're already flat or declining, basically. It's going to be in developing countries. So if you care about climate, you can't have an agreement that doesn't include them. And they say it's just simple science has to have that involvement.
Talk about China.
China, I was just at their delegation press briefing yesterday. There are 3 things they're concerned about, I guess. The big one, well, they're all big. I asked them to characterize them. They said trade. There are terms in this draft agreement that would potentially allow trade sanctions, border tariffs to apply if a country in, say, 2020 is not abiding by its pledges. Then other countries could slap on a tariff. China's absolutely dead set. They say this is just an excuse for protectionism. It's just environmentalism it's actually protectionism cast as environmentalism. That's one thing they're absolutely dead set on not having. The Senate and the House both are, you know, the bills that are moving here all partially want to protect American jobs, and so they want to have that locked-in guarantee. China is resisting firm words on what's called MRV, measurable, reportable, verifiable changes in its emissions trajectories. And again, the Senate, the way a treaty works in the United States, you need 2/3 Senate approval. A president can't just sign a document to have a treaty take effect here. And that's 67 votes. And you just think of the fights that we've seen over getting 60 votes, or even 50 in some cases. So it's a very high hurdle. It's just part of our democracy. And that's something that completely hampers President Obama. He can't come here and just sort of have a good idea without considering how it relates to the Senate.
Andrew Revkin, you have been covering environmental issues for what, close to 15 years at
25.
the New York Times?
15 at the New York Times.
And
yeah,
you've just resigned?
We're shrinking the newsroom by 100. We have shrunk as of this past week by 100 jobs, and I chose to take one of the buyouts that were offered so other people wouldn't have to get fired. And we didn't reach 100 buyouts, so that means right now, as we speak, people are being told they're losing their jobs.
Well, I want to continue to talk to you about this. Right now, we're going to go to break. And Evo Morales, the president of Bolivia, just gave a speech in the room right next to ours. We are continuing to cover what's happening outside and inside. You'll be going on to teach?
Teaching. I'm going to keep writing for the Times too, and the blog .earth is going to keep going too.
That's .earth.
Yes,
at the New York Times.
nytimes.com/.earth.
Andrew Revkin is the outgoing environmental reporter for the New York Times. This is Democracy Now! We'll be back in a minute. Thanks. Thanks.
To do just one good deed, one that will live on long after you're gone. A thing of beauty that will be a gift for all eternity. Plant a tree.